Today I'm going to talk you through some of the vocabulary we use to describe rhythms and find our way around a piece of music. You've probably heard a lot of these phrases. They all relate to the idea of a bar. Now a bar starts on beat 1 and continues until the next beat 1. So you might have 1, 2, 3. Then the next bar, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Take a look at this piece. There are 4 beats in each bar. I've highlighted the first bar of music. This is the next bar, and the next, and the next. In between each bar is a bar line. Now at the end of the piece, you'll see a double bar line. Going back to the top line, at the end of the top line, there's a double bar line with 2 little dots. That's called a repeat mark. When you see that repeat mark, you have to cast your eye back to find the mirror image equivalent and then repeat that section of music. So the section enclosed by the 2 dots is the section that you repeat. Now you don't play the first note again in this particular piece. In this piece, the first note is on beat 4. It's an incomplete bar, and we call it an upbeat. And it's followed by a downbeat. If you've ever worked with a conductor, you'll understand why we call it that. The downbeat is beat 1, 1, 2, 3, and the upbeat, 4, is beat 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, down, 2, 3, up, down. Here's another upbeat, here's another downbeat. Now on this next slide, I've written exactly the same piece of music, but I've written it more efficiently. It's actually more complicated. When it's such a short piece of music, I would never do that. It makes it too complicated. But with a long piece of music, it's a good way of saving paper and saving ink to use some of these other kinds of repeating. Now, the first thing to do is ignore all these new signs. You just start playing from the beginning. And just as before, when you get to the repeat sign, you go back, you play this section again, then you move on to the next section, and then you see the symbol DS. Now DS is short for dal segno. And dal segno is the Italian phrase that means go to the sign. So when you see DS, you go back to the sign, and the sign is this dollar sign, like a dollar sign, near the beginning. You go back to there and you play again until you reach the next sign, which is a circle with a target in it, the to coda sign. When you see that sign, you go to the coda, down the bottom, and you finally play that last bar. Now you might also sometimes in your music see DC rather than DS. DC stands for da capo, to the top, to the head of the piece, to the cap. You go right back to the beginning, so you don't have to search for a sign. Now a couple of other things that are sometimes quite useful. I've circled here a bar number. We've already talked about bars 1, 2, 3 and 4. This is bar 5, fairly self-explanatory. There's also these, which are called rehearsal marks, big capital letter in a box. You don't see them very often in piano music, but if you work in an orchestra or a band, you'll often see these. It enables the conductor to say, okay everyone, let's practice from figure B, and everyone straight away knows where they are. Or the conductor might say, let's go from 3 bars before figure D, and everyone plays from the same place. Now the quick-witted and the sharp-eyed amongst you might have noticed that the last bar of this piece only has 3 beats in it. Now that's because potentially you could repeat right back to the beginning where we had that isolated crotchet, that beat 4 on its own. So the last bar and the first fragment of a bar add up to 4.
At the piano, find a short piece that you know well, perhaps 16 bars long. Repeat it 10 times, changing the dynamic, the articulation, maybe even the texture.
So chapter 5 of this book, There's More to Playing the Piano by David Hall. Chapter 5 is all about bar lines and repeat bars. They're really a quirk of notation. There's not really anything practical you can do at the piano. But having said that, repeating music is something that composers have done through the ages. Countless composers have written a short piece of music and played it twice, 3 times, 4 times, often varying it Lots of the great composers wrote variation sets, and it's a skill that not that many people develop these days, apart from obviously jazz musicians who do it all the time. So what I'm going to suggest that you do at the piano is find a short piece that you know and almost create a set of variations on it. I found a piece of music that I know well, and I expect you might know it as well, the Arabesque by Burgmüller. And I'm going to play the 4 bars, the first 4 bars of the tune in 10 different ways. I've written myself a list so I don't forget, and I've cheated a bit, so I've got normal as the first version. So, here's a normal version. Now I'm going to change the dynamics so that it's loud, getting quiet. Now I'm going to make the right hand staccato. Now I'm going to play the right hand melody doubled up in octaves with my left hand as well. Now I'm going to hold the left hand chord and only move my left hand when the chord actually changes. So I'm not going to do the staccato crotchets, just going to hold that chord. Now I'm going to make my left hand do arpeggios. This is a good one for getting the right hand and the left hand even. Here we go. Now I'm going to do what we might call an umcha pattern in the left hand. Now I'm going to do like a mirror image with my right hand. I'm going to invert everything. So this becomes this. Now I'm going to make the whole piece major. So I'm going to throw in C sharps. The piece is originally A minor, but now I'm going to play in A major. Now you might find this one difficult. I'm going to play still minor, but I'm going to take everything up a note so that it's not in A minor but in B minor. So there's so many different ways you can get to know this piece, not just playing the notes as they're written on the page, but changing the texture particularly, and just thinking about these melodies and thinking about different ways of playing them can really help you to get to know a piece.